Now, when we say Islam is a complete way of life, we get the inspiration from the Quran and the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, where mental health is prioritized. Definitely.
From the Quran and Sunnah.
From the Quran and the Sunnah. There are very many examples we can cite out of the verses of the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, where mental health is actually an issue.
Yeah. So as a student of the Quran, a proud student of the Quran, I believe, yes, not directly is it going to be talked about, for example, surah to mental health is not going to be there, but there are certain things that happen in the Quran, maybe through stories, that they are so subtle that you need to give them a second eye for you to realize, mental health is being talked about in this position. One of the sounding examples with this concept is Musa alayhi salam and Harun. See, when Musa was given this task, look at what he was afraid of when Allah was proposing the issue of going to meet Pharaoh. He was like, Inni akhafu an yukadhibun. The very first argument is akhafu an yukadhibun. I'm afraid that they are going to call me a liar. And number two, وَيَضِيقُ صَدْرِي وَلَا يَنْطَلِقُ لِسَانِي. So my chest is going to be constricted. It's going to be put together. وَلَا يَنْطَلِقُ لِسَانِي. And as a result of my heart being closed up, I'm going to fail to speak. فَأَرْسِلْ إِلَى هَارُونَ. But please send Harun instead of me. And in another narration, in another passage, he explains why Harun would be better. هُوَ أَفْصَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. He is more eloquent than I am. So when it comes to a point that now Allah says Kalla, it's not going to be the case, then Allah explains that if it is not going to be the case, this is when the profound dua comes in. Rabbi shrah li sadri. Oh Allah, since I reported to you that my heart is going to be put together, and then you told me it's not going to be the case, you told me Kalla, then for this case, ishrah li sadri. My matter is going to be difficult. Yassir li amri. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani. If I'm not able to speak, please untie the knot on my tongue that I'm able to speak eloquently. But on top of that, even when you're not going to give Harun, because I had suggested that instead of sending me, you better send Harun. Musa still asks Allah, waj'al li wazira min ahli. Get me a helper from my family. And to be specific, Haruna akhi. That is not the important thing as to why I'm bringing this, but I'm saying, through the context of the Quran, even when Musa is insisting Harun to go, even when Musa insists Harun to be his assistant, to be his helper, there is no way between the passage of the prophets and the passage of Pharaoh, a conversation, does Harun appear anywhere? Harun is silent. Now a subtle understanding would be Musa alayhi salam was seeking for a kind of support, not to fail him, because sometimes, like maybe when we are still young at school, when maybe we want something from the headmaster, we would go, two people move and they're like, I'm knocking, you're entering, you're talking, meaning I can't speak when I'm alone.
That's
but if I get this support by my side, I'm free to speak out each and everything. And I think the role Harun played in the story of Musa alayhi salam is immeasurable, especially when you're talking about mental health.
And when you talk about Yaqub alayhi salam and Yusuf alayhi salam, because of course Yaqub was the father to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, the story is well known, where Yusuf spent years lost, decades actually lost, and the father had no idea. But of course he was the most beloved to the father, and when the father tried to open up to the other siblings of Prophet Yusuf, the repulsion was there. They never welcomed him because definitely they were envious. They never liked Yusuf in the first place. And then, why do you keep mentioning Yusuf? Why do you keep mentioning Yusuf? It's like, we are here, we are more than Yusuf. We can actually do whatever Yusuf would have done. But then what I wanted was Prophet Yaqub like, Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. No worries, you've repulsed what I'm trying to tell you, but put it in the know that I'm reporting huzni, the sadness, ashku bathi, my grief and sadness, ilallah. I'm reporting it to Allah. So Prophet Yaqub is being put in a mental health test issue situation, and this alone, the fact that he is prioritizing reporting it to the creator, notes that at least there is a root of mental health there. Yeah, he was going through something for decades, because someone might think that when you're talking about mental health, it's a swallow tab and tomorrow smile thing.
And it would mean it was a deep cut.
Yeah, exactly.
That he lost his sight.
Exactly. It was a deep cut, and it might take time for you to get done with whatever you're going through. But as a principal flaws, starting onto a journey is the most difficult thing, but navigating through it is not as difficult as starting. So these are all examples and citations from the Quran.
So as Yaqub was trying to put out his grief, his sorrow to his sons, and they repelled whatever he was saying, so he turns to Allah. Meaning, if you're not ready to receive what I'm saying, ashku bathi wa huzni ila Allah.
Exactly.
I'm sending my grief.
That definitely even teaches us that not everyone is going to be welcoming.
Not everyone is going to be welcoming, yeah.
And not everyone is going to pick interest in whatever you're telling them. But then it shouldn't be the end result.
That takes us back to the concept of who is the right person to.
Oh yeah, because if it's going to at times happen. Maybe you're a child, and you're going to be put down by a parent. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're an employer, and that will at times happen. But if at all you switch to the Creator, there is no option of Him throwing you away. Definitely, it has never happened anywhere. But actually, it's going to be welcoming if you think of going back to Him.
Yeah. Also talking about the Quran on mental health. Look at the issue of the laws in the Quran, especially when it comes to relationship, mu'amalat, interaction between people. I would argue that the most talked about law in the Quran is the law of divorce, the most detailed law in the whole Quran. Look at everything is almost just hinted about. Not even marriage is talked about in detail. But when you talk about the issue of family altogether, the issue that is talked about the most is talaq, divorce. To the extent that Mufassirun even see, we have Surah Al-Talaq in the Quran, but also there is another surah that talks about talaq in some great detail. That is Surah Al-Baqarah. So Surah Al-Baqarah is also called Al-Talaq al-Surah. It is the minor Surah Al-Talaq. It is the Surah Al-Talaq light version. So my question here, as we try to enlighten ourselves when it comes to this concept, is that even when you're discussing divorce, of course, you marrying someone is not a mental health issue. But parting ways with someone,
that comes with a lot.
Issue. It comes with a lot. But what does Allah emphasize even when He's talking about talaq? I would argue there is more. Yeah, that is the whole concept now. In Surah Al-Talaq, there is more discussion about piety, about being conscious of Allah than talaq itself. So almost everything, وَمَا يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا يَرْزُقُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا.
If you're pious,
if you're pious, meaning Allah is لَا تَدْرِي لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يُحْدِثُ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ أَمْرًا. Allah is spreading positivity even in this concept of divorce, that people are because it is a mental health issue. It is a mental health concern, but Allah is not letting us deal with it on our own, because ideally we can't. Like He says, وَيُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah was only going to teach us, to bring us to understand things we couldn't understand on our own. And this gives me a lot of perspective to understand that the Quran doesn't address surgery. Because surgery, we could come up with the knowledge about surgery depending on the things we've added up, but separating, we don't know that. We know coming together, but we don't know how to separate. We don't know.
And
how
actually, I think
separate.
it makes sense when Allah even guides the way Islam guides us when we are separating in harmony. Like even when you're parting ways, don't be too unfair to a level of not appreciating
even
the goodness,
recognizing the good that was there.
Because in recognizing the goodness, it might give you another version of addressing something. And I'm picking a lesson in Allah giving hope, even when people are parting ways,
parting ways,
just to protect their mental health. وَإِن يَتَفَرَّقَا يغنيهم. Like even when there is parting ways, it's not the end of the story, because someone might think, like the young blood might think of suicide just because they're parting ways. Just because you're ending a story with someone doesn't necessarily mean your life is stopping there. That's why Allah is like, no, you must be hopeful that there might be life after that.
Wow.
So just to protect your mental health.
The Quran and Sunnah's perspective on preserving mental health is
beyond measure. Beyond measure, because just imagine if at all it was not given that approach. And this is why people who are running away from such guidance, they turn out being victimized by the whole divorce story.
So it means we need to improve on the way we look into the texts of the Quran and Sunnah, because someone would literally say there is nothing in the Quran or the Sunnah that addresses
talk about co-parenting. How is it going to be effective when it is disastrous?
It is disastrous.
Of course.
Wow. The Quran addresses these issues, although they need a deep understanding, which calls us to study again in depth, so that we get to know these concepts from the Quran and Sunnah's perspective.
Yeah.
Barakallahu fikum.